David.
Hey, Tzakhi, how are you?
I'm great because I'm very happy to have you with me here. We're at the Meet.Capital Startup Podcast. And David, we've had several conversations. I think you have a lot of interesting things to tell startups. I'll just say a few words about you, and then I'll let you maybe say a little more about yourself and your background. I know that uh, you're an exited founder. You had an AI startup, if I remember, and now you have two types of ways that you help founders. One is you're part of a group of angels in the UK, and you also have Glenluna Ventures, which is an advisory that actually helps startups connect with investors. But maybe I should let you say a few words about yourself and your background.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Tzakhi. Yeah, so that's right. So I had an AI business in the kitchens and bathroom design space. So we'd help consumers design their brand new kitchen and bathroom using rudimentary, very early stage AI. I left that business now a number of years ago, and I very much, having raised significant amounts of money from family and friends and from angels and from venture capital, private equity, I realized that, probably one of the hardest things to do in the startup journey is actually raising money, right? And sometimes investors expect that founder to be an expert at something they've never done before and something that, you know, takes them away from building product, from validating a hypothesis that what they're trying to do will actually move the needle and deliver real benefit for their target customers, and those target customers will actually pay for it. And I think, particularly the early stage, a startup is a search for a sustainable and scalable business model that hits product market fit, that you can roll out and scale quickly. And raising money, particularly in this environment, is really, really hard. So I set up a angel investment network here in Manchester called Manchester Angels. Not the most inspiring name, but it tells you a
Practical.
lot about what we do. It does what it says on the tin, right? It's a Manchester-based angel investment network. So we're not a fund and we're not a syndicate, but we are a network, and they are different, right? So a fund has a pot of money in the bank, or at least commitment to put amounts of money in the bank based on certain preconditions. You have formal investment committees, formal memos, certain milestones in the ground, really, that allow you to kind of deploy capital at certain points. An angel syndicate is different. It's when you don't have the money in your bank, but you have kind of agreements from everybody in the syndicate that are based on certain pre-agreed rules. If it's majority, if it's 70%, whatever, that of the members of the syndicate want to invest in a certain opportunity, that kind of drags along the rest of that syndicate. So we're a network, right, which is a bunch of people who are closely aligned on, certainly in our case, our desire to have an impact in our local community in and around Manchester, and particularly in B2B tech. So we've done in 2023 we did 7 deals. Which is great, right?
Yeah,
For
that's quite a
quite a
bit.
new
Yeah.
network like us. Yeah, quite a new network like us. We've got 42 exited angels. It's a new network. It's a hard funding environment, right? If you're an angel, why would you put money into a high risk business and rather than leave it in the bank, get 5 points on what you leave in risk free in the bank, right? So I think that shows that the quality of the deals that we've been able to source, as well as I think the quality and desire of the angels to deploy capital and help out those businesses. So that's Manchester Angels. At the same time, I will do early stage advisory. So I will help early stage founders, so kind of pre-seed to Series A, to effectively go and raise money for those businesses. So that is what I do, and I'll have done 6 deals in 2023 in my advisory business, separate to 7 deals at Manchester Angels, which I run. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, good. So it kind of begs the question for us to talk about the different types of investors that you mentioned. And specifically, I really would like to hear a little more about what startup founders should do when approaching angel groups. Because, even as a kind of broad rule of thumb, pre-seed, seed, you reach out to angels, a little later reach out to VCs. And I think most founders kind of know the difference between a VC and an angel. Angel groups are a kind of strange creature in the middle. And maybe we need to talk a little bit about how to approach those groups, at what stage, who are the decision makers. So first of all, what is the first thing to do when you reach out to an angel group? Who should you reach out to, and how should you do it?
Well, maybe before we answer that question, I think it's worth, addressing what I would call an urban myth of angels versus VCs.
Okay.
Maybe then talk a little bit about the difference between all those types, and then come back into that quick. It's a really, really important question. Maybe more important set against the context of what these different entities actually are. So there is very much an urban myth that angels are easier to raise from than VCs. And they can be, to be fair. They can move quicker, they can make decisions more autonomously, they can move quicker, but not always. I think what founders have got to realize is angels know just how hard it is, right? Angels have built businesses. Angels have typically raised money. Angels know what it's like at the coalface. And because they are ex-founders, or at least ex-operators, they know just how hard it is. And it's a great stat. I can't remember the exact stat, but VCs in the US, there is a fairly high percentage of those at VCs who have been founders, and even higher percentage in US based VCs who have been operators in the business. But in Europe, for example, there's a very, very low number of people at VCs, decision makers at VCs, who have been either operators or founders, right? So when you're reaching out to an angel, almost counterintuitively, there is a skepticism because they know how hard it is. I think founders will reach out to them because they think they'll make decisions quicker and they'll be more founder friendly, and they know what it's like because they've been on your shoes, so they'll want to help you out. But actually, yeah, because they've been in your shoes, they know how hard it is, right? So sometimes they'll be harder to convince VCs. The other reason why sometimes it's harder to raise money from angels is because VCs typically have, flags in the ground when they make decisions. They have ICs every second Monday of the month, or ICs once a quarter, with one particular one in the UK, I know. Regularly they have accountability of an investment committee that they will sit down, present a paper and say, here is an investment we are proposing, and here's all the pros and the cons and what the market looks like and everything else. So there is a degree of rigor bound and constrained by a regular calendar that they make decisions on. So you can be somewhat reliant on that calendar. Whereas, look, angels have worked really, really hard, right? And without generalizing, sometimes they're enjoying themselves. They've got other commitments. They've built their businesses. They've spent huge amounts of time of their career and their lives, their family lives, in building those businesses. Now they want to enjoy the time with the family. So they're not always, the rhythm is not always the same as a VC. So I think it's important to realize that whilst angels can be easier to raise money from, quicker, make decisions quicker, more founder friendly, they can also be enjoying life a little bit, relaxing, spending time with their family, all the right things. And they can also be more skeptical of what you're trying to do because they have been there and seen how hard it is. So I think that's important to kind of contextualize. I think if you look at your brilliant question, which is how do you do it? So if you look under angel group on the dictionary, you will see two words: cat herding. It really is. You're herding a bunch of cats to a certain destination of making investment, right? So
But that's from the
my
perspective
job.
of the person that's leading the group. How does it look
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
perspective of the founder that's reaching out to that group?
So I think from a founder's perspective, it can look a little bit chaotic and a little bit frustrating, I suspect. I think the key thing a founder can do to reach out is number one, if you're addressing an angel group, there typically is a named person like me, who is the deal sourcer, the deal founder, whatever it might be, something very, very typical that they might reach out to and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Here's how we get the deal in front of the angels. But the key thing, the magic, if you like, right, the thing that I would often recommend people do is look at the angel group. Very often certainly we publish who are the angels within the group. Find one or two or three angels that are aligned to you, right? Your theme. If you're in fintech, look at the fintech angel. If you're in insurtech, look for the insurtech angel. Look for an angel. Reach out to them directly, as if you were reaching out just the angel, not to the angel group, and try and get them on board. Because the most powerful dynamic in an angel group for a founder to be aware of is it is driven by individual angels' conviction.
Okay.
So as somebody who is the deal sourcer, who puts deals in front of the network, the chances of that deal coming in through me, because it's coming through the front door of the website, and me looking for an angel within the network who is aligned to that, who likes it, and I'll call them up and say, got a really great opportunity for you. I think you should have a look at that and maybe spend some time putting your arms around that business and looking under the hood, getting to know them. Hopefully if I do my job right, that is a fairly high likelihood of success. Although I have lots of those to do, right? You can imagine what my deal flow looks like. But if you as a founder can find one or two or three angels, and one is all you need really, if you can look up that angel, go into their LinkedIn, make a connection, go to events where they are, ask for introductions, get into that angel, get that angel to the point that says, I have spent 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever it might be, working with this business, understanding this business, looking their customers in the whites of their eyes, and I'm now prepared to invest in this business. That is the most powerful thing. That conviction drives the FOMO in the group and will drive conviction amongst the other angels in the group. So the most important thing a founder can do when trying to address an angel group is, yes, tick the box and go through either the official way, through the, submitting the form, if that's how it's done, reaching out to the deal originator, find an angel, get that angel to a point of conviction, and get that angel to bring it to the network. Let me give you a really great example of how this works, right? So this is a beautiful example of how we as a network work. So about 3 months ago, somebody brought me a deal, came in through the front door. I looked at it. It didn't really fit our requirements. It didn't really fit our filter. I had a chat with one of the angels in the group who kind of sits on kind of a deal review team with me, and he agreed, yeah, it's not really for us. So I went back to the founder, politely passed, said, look, love what you're doing. It doesn't really fit within our requirements for the following reasons. And I was quite detailed in the feedback. Then a couple of months later, this angel who I'd kind of sat on the deal review call, sort of called him and said, I've been thinking about this. I know it's not really one for the group. It doesn't fit within our requirements, but I really like it. And so I picked up I've decided to put in 50 grand, whatever it was. And I picked up the phone to two of the other angels in the community who I've met. And they're also now putting money in, and we've done the deal,
Nice.
this is brilliant, right? It's the power of the community. And that's what angel groups really are. It's a community.
Yeah, I think I just have to say that it is sometimes like a bit of a double-edged sword, and I'll say what I mean. I'll explain what I mean. When you reach out to an angel that is part of a group, so there is the opportunity that if you're a very good match, that angel will take you to the group and kind of create that excitement within the group. But there's also the flip side of it, which that a lot of angel investors that are part of groups don't really want. The reason they joined a group is that they don't really want to deal so much with startups. And then they will hopefully politely say, well, this could be a fit for our group. I invest for the group. Here's the contact of, if they're from Manchester, of David. Please talk to David. He leads our group. And you take it from there. Is there any advantage in reaching you through that kind of intro, or would it be the same as someone just filling up the form on your website?
I think, it's a great question. I think there are a number of things to unpick there. The reality is there are a lot of people who don't have access to a network, don't know how to reach out to an individual in the network. There are some angel networks out there who don't publicize who their angels are. And therefore, the only route available to them is via the front door, filling in the form of the website or reaching out to the deal originator. So that is their route. Also, if they haven't listened to this podcast, they don't know that actually the trick is to find one of the angels. So they will go to the point of contact. Also, and I hate making people do this, right? But when you're fundraising, it's really hard. It's really, 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 really hard. It's time consuming. It's emotionally consuming, right? And the thing you hate most is having an investor say, "Can you fill in this form?" Right? Because it takes you out of your workflow, right? And we do that. And I do that with a huge apology, because I know to get even the form only takes you 2 or 3 minutes. It takes you out of a workflow, and it's quite a pain. But it's important because it then goes into our workflow on our side and our systems that make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks, right? So sometimes the only way people can go or know to go, or very often, particularly with underrepresented groups, don't feel that they can do anything but go in the front door, which is the website or the forum or whatever it is. That's why it's really important. I often talk about is, and we say this on our website, is here's a list of our guys, right? It will help you so much more if you have an angel who will say, "I love this, and I'm putting my hand in my pocket." Because you're right, there are some angels in a group that, quite frankly, want to deploy their capital and want to help out the businesses, but they don't really want to do the hard work, the due diligence type stuff in advance. So if there's somebody they trust, somebody they know in that network who's turning around and saying, "Actually, I really like this, so much so that I'm putting my hand in my pocket," they're much more likely to go, "Well, actually, yeah, I like that." Or they're very often our angels who go, "Actually, I like this business, but I just don't have the time to know, is this right? Is this a good founder? I've got my own stuff going on. I'm an angel in 5 other businesses. I'm a chairman of 2 other than NEDs at 3. So I just need somebody in the group. Oh yeah, so he or she has taken the lead in that. Oh, brilliant. I'll put in my money." So finding, it's not unlike, in VC, you need a lead. We call it a champion, but it's the same thing really. You need a lead to do whatever level of due diligence is appropriate. Sometimes you have people who want to do, levels of due diligence that are valid and appropriate for a private equity round for like a 30K check, which is like, no, just don't do that, right? But anyway, so you get somebody who wants to do an appropriate level of DD for that and champion it and be the person who drives conviction amongst their colleagues in the group.
Okay. When so just to clarify, if they don't have any other route, then filling up the form will work. I mean, at least it'll get them somewhat, like, you will seriously look at people that fill the applications. It's not a waste of time to do it if they don't have a better way of reaching you.
Absolutely. I mean, look, so what happens with us, right, is when you fill in the form, so there's lots of guidelines on our website as to what our requirements are, right? So primarily B2B tech. So, very occasionally we'll have B2C tech coming through, and I'll say, "Well, that's not in our requirements. I'm very sorry." But first of all, the requirements should be, certainly on our website, very clear as to what we're looking for. Then you fill in the form, and that hits my Airtable. The system I built, an Airtable that works really well, and they are groups, or they are opportunities that I do a first pass review for any obvious misfit. So, is it based in Azerbaijan? We don't invest in businesses like Azerbaijan as a group, right? And we're a group, so it's about what our angels, the members of the group, have decided that they wish to invest in, and they don't invest in Azerbaijan, right? More importantly, certainly for our group, is it got the SCIS, the EIS, so the UK tax kind of legislation around it. Some angels want it, some don't. So I do a first pass. Does it fit the filter? If it doesn't, then I click a button and hit reject, and I enter in. And I'm fairly good, right, at giving them fairly detailed feedback, the reasons why. And so I will spend time telling them the reasons why, and hopefully then signposting them further, because we hate just leaving people with a no. So we like to signpost them and tell them where they should be going next, right? So that's really, really important. So once it then hits once I've gone through that first pass, we have every 2 weeks, we have a deal review call. So a few of us sit on that deal review call and we talk about it and we try and identify, okay, well, if that's an interesting opportunity, do we agree with the market sizing methodology, which is probably the biggest place that everything falls down, where people aren't thinking ambitious enough and they're not sizing the market in a way that makes sense to us. So they'll go, well, Gartner says this market is, $600 billion, right? Which is a very rough and top-down approach. And very often, like 99% of the time, that might be the market broadly where they're playing, but isn't actually the market that they're playing in. So we'll be like, I should give a good example of that because it's really, really important. So not so long ago, I was dealing with a startup in booking student accommodation. So you go to college, go to university, you want to book somewhere to live, you want to rent somewhere to live. You go on to, go to private landlords. We have what they call these PBSAs, these purpose-built student accommodations, these big skyscraper-y type, fairly ugly looking from the outside anyway, blocks where you book your flat, right? And this founder was, this is a $20 billion market. I was like, oh gosh, wow, walk me through that. She says, yeah, well, we have, here's this report and says that the PBSA, the purpose-built student accommodation market, is worth 20 billion. I was like, no, not really. That if you were building them, if you were a builder of these, 20-story high PBSAs, yeah, I get that. If you're buying the land, pouring concrete into the ground, that's you. But you're not. You're a software there that books accommodation, right? So that's not your market. So we had to go through quite complex market sizing things. So we will go through. We'll look at the market sizing. We'll look at, do we think it's the right proposition to go to market? The founder. We'll look at it as angel investors and say, is this an investable proposition? And if we say yes, we will then tell the founder that we are progressing to the next stage. And the next stage is for me or the other angels on a deal call to actually look for angels in our network who are who have an interest, right? If it's a MarTech business, I'll look for a MarTech founder. If it's a fintech, I'll look for a fintech. If it's an AI business, I'll look for an AI angel. Someone who's got an interest in AI. And who I know doesn't have too much on their plate right now, are looking for somebody who will say, actually, I quite like this business. Yeah, I'll take a look and let me get back to you, and I'll tell you if I want to spend some time with them. So we do that job of trying to find an angel who really wants and likes this business. In fact, in our network, if we cannot find an angel who is interested in this, we'll reject it.
David, I have to say that the process that you have, not surprisingly, after knowing you, is very thoughtful and very respectful towards the founders. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that one type of problem that founders have with angel groups, not all angel groups, I hope a minority of angel groups, but it happens, is that the drive of the angel group is to bring the founder to some type of internal event where they present in front of the group, either online or in a physical event, and then they get grilled. And what do you think about these types of group and this type of setup?
So, yes, great question. Let me tell you how we do it. I'll tell you what objective. So once we have an angel that says, I really like this business, we do one virtual pitch call a month and we have one dinner a quarter. And at the virtual pitch calls, we will put 2 or 3 businesses in front of our angels. And at our dinner, we will put 2 or 3 businesses in front of the angels.
But these are businesses that already have a champion within your group.
Yeah, correct. And
they're coming in prepared and in a positive, they're coming to a positive place for them.
They are, because they will pitch, but then their champion will also stand up either on the virtual call. They can remain sitting, that's fine, but certainly at the dinner they have to stand up, right? But they will say, and now that you have listened to the founder's pitch, this is why I am investing, right?
Great.
That's really powerful.
Yes.
I really dislike those sort of generic pitch events. I think they're terrible. I think as a founder, people think that a founder's most important commodity is money. It's not. It's time, right? Time is a function of money and how long left you've got the runway, right? So if you are standing up in front of a bunch of random investors with no sense of conviction, almost every single time it is a tragic and big waste of your time, which should be better spent elsewhere. Slight analogy, but recently I had a conversation with a great founder, brilliant founder, who is building a huge business in a really, really big market, super backable, all things lining up. And he spent half an hour on the call with a guy, with an angel who will put a 10K ticket in. And I hold his ass over the coals a little bit. I said, why are you spending half an hour with a guy who will put 10K in? That half an hour you should be spending with a guy or a girl or whatever who is going to put in 100K or 200K. Don't do that. You're raising 3 million quid. Why are you wasting your time on one single 10K ticket? Now, in Angel Network, you might have 10 angels putting in 10, 20K, 30K tickets, right? So that ends up being a big number, a decent number, good use of your time. So I really tell founders that I work with, do not turn up at a generic pitching event hoping that you're going to chuck something out into the crowd and something will come back. It never, ever does. It never does. Very often, it's a PR event or it's a publicity event or a profile raising event for that angel network group, or they're ticking a box. It's a waste of your time. Make sure you know what you're getting into. And by the way, never, ever, 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 ever pay to pitch. Don't pay to have someone to review your deck. Don't pay to get yourself ready for investment from one of these groups, because they're just using you as their bank. Just make sure you know what you're doing.
Okay, so that brings to the next question, which I have my own thoughts on, but I want to hear yours on how to choose between angel groups or even individual angels. I mean, besides the obvious of making sure that their investment agenda fits what you have to offer, but beyond that, what are the things that founders should look for before, right? You're saying very correctly, spending their time and energy on something. How do they decide which path to go?
So there's a kind of positive and a negative side of this. So on the positive side, I think it's really important to look at the value that angel can bring. Has this angel been in your particular market? Does he or she have a Rolodex? Is it something that they should be into? Have they made a ton of mistakes in your very specific domain? And are they prepared to roll up their sleeves and help you? Do you want them to do that? Is it somebody who maybe not in your very specific market, but in your kind of space can be really valuable and helpful, right? So this is a person you should be able to turn to and ask for help. Can you see them adding value at those times? I think also, can you spend time with this person and want to spend time with this person? Or are they going to drive you nuts, right? It is a relationship. You might, if it's somebody who's not necessarily on hand the whole time, you'll still spend time with her or with him. So is it the right person to do so? So I think that's the positive. Can they add value, and do you want to spend time with them? On the negative side, you should really do diligence that angel, right? There are angels who are brilliant, massively value additive. There are angels also who are bad news. Are they members of a well-known group? Can you DD them? Have they done any other investments? Can you pick up the phone to other investors? And although based on the sheer number of investors are likely to do, you probably won't be able to do this as much, but can you speak to an investor, to an investee business this angel has invested in that they have not recommended you speak to, right? Because they'll always recommend the people they want to speak to. But, are there people in their portfolio, founders, businesses in their portfolio, where things have not gone to plan, right? How do they feel? Speak to them. And you'll always get, it's a bit like a TripAdvisor report, right? There'll always be blips,
Yeah.
right? And things that founders are very emotional to their baby, and they'll look at things from their perspective. So you'll always get the old blip, right? but is this blip consistent? And that, of course, that's the same, by the way, for VCs. Do your DD on them by speaking to portfolio businesses that they've not told you to speak to, because that's where you'll find the real gems. Do the same with angels.
Okay, I'll take my previous question a step further and be a little more harsh. A lot of groups, or I'd say roughly you can distinguish between two types of angel groups or angel clubs or syndicates, where one is where they're mostly keen on investing, and the second is where their real interest is to socialize, create events, or the organizers of the group are trying to, their businesses to make money off events or subscriptions. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just, the point is, how do you, as a founder, obviously you're much better off reaching out to an angel group that's mostly keen on investing, and that's their main agenda, and that's their main goal when in dealing with you. So how to identify that?
Okay, so it's a great question. Just to give you a bit of an insight, when we set up Manchester Angels, my remit very specifically was, this is not going to be another drinking club, which in reality a lot of angel groups are, right? So your question's on point. They're social communities. That is not what we set out to be, right? Yes, we socialize together, but it is about creating a sense of community, which is very, very important, because as the example earlier on showed, when people know each other, they can do deals. And our reason is to do deals that are good for the investors and good for the founders, right? I think as a founder, I would look at how many deals they've done, right? So people will say, you've done 7 deals in the Angel Group in 2023, and it's very, very challenging environments. That's pretty darn good. And I think they're probably right. I have a founder's mentality and a sense of urgency. I would like to be doing an awful lot more. But 7 is not bad for a brand new angel group, in somewhere like Manchester, in the US. Angel groups, they might do more, right? And the total amount invested. And all those kind of metrics that how do I know? The metrics should be available to you, because you can ask, you can say to the deal originator, if it's not on the website, how many deals have you done? How much have you put into these businesses? What's the typical time? Why do you reject them? How do you reject them? Ask them, right? Because it's a use of your time. And I think, if I would say a rule of thumb, if this group are getting together every 2 weeks or 4 weeks to per face to face and drinking and having a dinner, and they're not actually getting the deals done, or they're charging people to pitch, no, never, right? Never ever pay to pitch. You just have to wonder what their agenda is. And I think if you also look at the makeup of the angel group, right? So I am a founder, I'm an ex-founder, I'm a current founder of my own business. We are all exited angels pretty much in our spaces. We're very open about who we are and what we have done and what our experiences are. So we're founders. And look at that. I think try and figure out who is behind the network. And I think that should give you a good idea. Is this a drinking club, or are they really there to make investments?
Okay, David, this was super useful. I want to just, before we wrap up, just to hear a little more about Glenluna, because I think you guys do a lot for founders, for startups. You also only work on success, so it's really a win-win when you choose to work with a startup, because you're quite rigorous about who you accept. But maybe if you could just give us a few words about Glenluna and who should reach out to you.
Okay, so I raise in these two places. So Manchester Angels, if it's a broadly Manchester, UK based business, B2B tech with a large defendable moat in a decent sized market, all the requirements on the website. So we will put that deal to the group, and then I do not charge a fee for those, right? Because it's not Glenluna, that's Manchester Angels. If there is a business that falls outside of the scope of Manchester Angels, or they want me to raise, let's say they're raising $1 million and we're going to put in 200K, whatever else. So I will raise alongside that, or if it's totally outside the scope. So for example, I'm raising for businesses in London, yes, in Manchester, but also in Leeds, in the UK, Copenhagen, in Denmark, New York, Texas. So I'm raising for businesses across the world. And I'm looking for businesses where I can make a really big impact, because fundraising is hard. It is, gosh, it's probably the most hardest things that you need. And you need to be an expert, right? Because if you get this wrong as a founder, if your investor puts terms on the table you don't really know what it is, or you've not seen something bitten about them before, you could find yourself in a very sticky situation. You need someone to hold your hands, to advise you, to walk you the process, to find the investors, to get the right match investors, not spend time on the phone with the wrong type of investors who are not going to invest because you're the wrong stage, but they'll talk to you because it's an associate who needs a 2-year advanced deal flow, sight of deal flow 2 years in advance, all that kind of stuff. So we work really, 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 really hard with a business to ensure that their proposition is right, the go-to-market is right, the market sizing is right, the deck looks right, the numbers look right. We will identify through a very significant list of investors we've worked extensively with before. We know what they're looking for in terms of sector attraction, stage, founder makeup, whatever it might be, growth velocity. We know what they're looking for, and they'll work with us, and they'll pick up the virtual phone because it's us calling. And we also have a full-time research team who will look at new investors based on investment thesis, based on portfolio construction, everything that we think would make a good investor fit. And we will then create an investment campaign at scale, a hyper-personalized investment campaign at scale to reach out to those investors. So that's how we work, and we only work in a success fee. I don't believe in retainers, right? Retainers are a very good way for an advisor to make a lot of money and not do any work. We're very, very picky and choosy and highly selective to who we work with, because we'd be crazy not to. So we only work with a very small number of businesses at a time, and we only get paid if we get this deal done, which is very risky for us, right? So we have to be very careful about who we choose. So the kind of people I'd love to hear from is, first of all, just anybody I can help, right? Forget the fee bit, right? Forget the fee bit. Anybody I can just help and share knowledge and tell them who to avoid, or how to avoid, or what to avoid, or who to go for, and how to make yourself more percent, and what does the market sizing look like. I spend my days having coffee, usually decaf, otherwise I'd be super hyper, and I'd be really happy to help. In terms of the kind of startups, we're looking to help, startups raising, north of 500K, pre-seed to Series A. So we kind of cap out about 10 million or thereabouts. Primarily B2B tech with a large defensible moat in really good large markets that we can describe in a very methodical way, very systematic way, and we can communicate both the value proposition and the size of that market to the people that we reach out to, the investors we reach out to. So always happy to speak to those people. And also, investors like really good deal flow. They like high quality filtered deal flow where we can support and accelerate and nudge the founders along the right way and kind of be the middleman in between the investor and the founder, support those founders. People can reach out to me via LinkedIn. Quite prolific on LinkedIn as a Tzakhi, which is why we got really well. Happy to speak to people on LinkedIn. Email david@glenluna.com. Glenluna.com is the website. People can find me there. So I'm looking for people I can help and work with, and people we can have a really big impact and help them get funded.
Awesome. David, this was really useful and really helpful. Thanks so much. And we'll talk soon.
Tzakhi, you take care. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, David.